we all have intuition. We are all psychic. We're all born like, you meet someone and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't know why. I just don't like this person. Or, you think about a specific person, all of a sudden your phone rings and it's that person. We're all connected to these different dimensions, these different planes, these different timelines, these different energies. It's just about how do I cultivate that, which is practice, right? You might get a gut feeling about, a job opportunity, or all of a sudden you're like, I don't know why, but I need to move to Hawaii. Doesn't make any sense, but I have to do it, right? It's this pull. But instead of like trying to logic the pull away, you're allowing and surrendering to it. And then you can really notice a lot of shifts.
Hey everyone, this is your host Yoshino, and you're listening to Artist Decoded. My guest today is my very good friend. She's practically family. Her name is Daashuur, and she is known as the Spirit Guide Coach. She's also the founder and owner of the Spirit House Collective. Now, let's see, how do you describe her? Well, she is a mystic and a medium. And there's no real roundabout way to say this, but she communicates with the dead. And I know what a lot of you may be thinking. Actually, I don't know what a lot of you may be thinking, but if you're not open to this frame of existence, then let me challenge that a little bit. I mean, to be frank, I was a skeptic as well. Mainly because I grew up in a very Christian environment when I was in my younger years. And as I've gotten older and I've questioned the frame of reality that we view on a daily basis, the more that I am aligned with the occult, with the ideas of mysticism. And so I think we have to take all of these teachings into consideration and be open to them. And I think with that openness, that creative openness to the way that we see the world, we can actually come to our own conclusions as to what is right to us and be more in touch with our intuition. Because who's to say what is real or what is logical? And I just want you to come with that sort of openness to this conversation. And so like I said, Asia's a really good friend of mine. I always have great conversations with her. And in fact, I've had a couple of sessions with her, which are very powerful in these emotional aspects that I wasn't quite prepared for. And it definitely opened up my frame of consciousness more, my acceptance of the unknown. And what can I say aside from that? It opened me up to a further integration with my intuition, I suppose. So thank you so much for tuning in and supporting this podcast. If you can, please go to our iTunes page, leave us a review, or to our Spotify page, and you can leave us a quick review over there. Artist Decoded is an independently funded podcast. If you'd like to donate to us, you can go to our website, artistdecoded.com. You can go to our donate link. There's a couple of options there. Yeah, this is a very special conversation, and I appreciate you all for taking this time. So here's my conversation with my friend, medium, witch, mystic, Daashuur. Hope you all enjoy it. Yeah, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah. I meant to do this when I was over at your house, but, well, here we are.
Hey, at least it's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I guess for the audience, what would you say exactly it is that you do? I know what you do, but just for the context.
What would I say I do? I am a medium, a spiritual guide, and the founder of the spiritual collective Spirit House Collective in Los Angeles.
And but how has that changed over time, this idea of the medium to you?
I think that it's interesting. Like as right after I said that, I think more than a medium, the work that I do is channeling, and by channeling, that means that I am channeling information from certain spirits or entities or energies. Mediumship for me comes into play if I am connecting to someone's ancestors, someone's loved ones, which I don't actually do that work that often. I can, but what I truly enjoy is being able to connect to individuals' unique spiritual teams, spirit guides specifically, and being able to help individuals kind of create a plan based on the blueprint of their soul so that they can feel more fulfilled, they can feel less depressed, they can feel more connected to the energy of source itself as well as their own multitude of unique purposes.
Speaking of that, just that idea of fulfillment, I'm curious just from your experiences, like why do you think that people don't feel as fulfilled?
I think, in every generation, for the most part, the majority of us don't feel fulfilled. We kind of lose ourselves as we grow up and figure out, do we want to assimilate with society, do we want to assimilate with the hopes and dreams of our parents, our families, our our community? What is it to really listen to your own unique rhythm, your own voice and heart? And I think the older we get, unfortunately most of us get further and further away from who we really are.
Yeah.
And I think, especially right now, I mean, look, let's be real. Like the world is on fire right now, right? And it's been on fire for a long time, but it's much more intense now. And I think in times of hopelessness, people turn to alternative forms of connection, because they might not be getting what they hoped they could get or feel, like they're healing the way they wish to be healing from, Western forms of therapy or guidance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to like an to an interview with you in it, and you were talking about as we get older and losing connection with our truest form or losing connection with ourselves. And I think you were working retail at the time, and there was a child. You said something to the effect that she was a child witch. She was like 6 years old or something, and she pointed out to you that you're a witch, but at the time you didn't come to the acceptance of who you were as
Yeah,
right.
I remember that. Yeah,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I remember that. I felt like exposed when she called me a witch because she kept saying it, like around these other people. There was obviously something about me that she saw that she related to being a witch. And there was a part of me that deeply resonated with that and was deeply honored that this child, and as a child, you're closer to source, at least I believe, than, obviously an adult. But I also was embarrassed and ashamed of that. And honestly, I still struggle with that in some small way.
How
Because
so?
well,
Like,
it's not like what I do is the norm. Of course, it's astrology, spirit guides. All of these things are in mainstream media right now. They're on talk shows. They're on websites. There's Gwyneth Paltrow. There's Goop and all of that stuff. But still, for the most part, when you're at a dinner party or you're talking to a group of new people and someone asks you what you do, and you're like, I talk to dead people, that's not like it's not the norm. So
but
there's
I'm sure it's a really interesting conversation starter.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but it's still there's still like a running thread of like slight panic right before I share it. And I think that also whether, someone's a medium, an energy worker, any of these, a practicing witch, that I think that thread of anxiety or the fact that we work with so much that is for the most part unseen, I think it keeps us honest, and there's a level of humility that is intrinsically like woven into that. We have to constantly be connecting with ourselves, acknowledging who we are, and kind of submitting and accepting whatever comes through, and feeling that we can share it, whether it resonates or not. So I feel like it's a constant state of humility, which I think is really special for this type of work. I know that's not exactly what you were talking about, but it just led me there.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, no, I mean, so you said humility, and then there was another word that you said right
I think it's
before that.
humility and surrender, right? Like if I'm hearing something from a spirit and I'm talking to somebody, I'm going to share it. And the other person could say, that's not fucking true. That's ridiculous. You're, a liar or whatever. And that might happen. But I have to trust my connection, and I have to trust that what I'm receiving needs to be shared. And honestly, I can't be attached to whatever the person across from me, feels from it, because that will, hem me up, and that will stop the channel and flow of communication. I have to just accept that what I receive can land, or it might land later, and that what I'm communicating has some significance that will hopefully help the individual that I'm speaking with at some point.
Yeah. Is it strange to be in the position where a lot of people come to you for answers essentially to their problems? I mean, is that something that
I
you
don't give
become?
answers.
Hmm. Well, I mean, that you channel through your guides, and then also through you channel through their guides as well. But I mean, well, okay, so then what exactly?
Well,
So,
I mentioned
mhm.
that. Yeah, I mentioned yeah, there are people, I think the work that, so there are readers and practitioners who are definitely all about like, I'm going to give you some fucking answers. Like, here's what's coming through. And I think that's fine. But the work I do, specifically of spirit guides, is the whole point is that whoever I'm speaking to comes to their own conclusions and answers themselves. It's much more powerful to be able to have a realization yourself and to see the answer within you than to have someone just give it to you. There's no work for it. It doesn't have as much weight, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I'm not here to fortune tell. I'm here to share it's basically therapy, but instead of talking to one person, you're talking to between 2 to 12 different energies, all sharing their thoughts, their guidance, their memories, in the hopes that it connects to the person and they realize their own truth. When we
Mhm.
realize truth, then we have more confidence. And we have more confidence, we make better choices. Whether they work out or not, we feel, individuals then feel as though they are more in control of their destiny because they understand themselves on a deeper level. And
Mhm.
that's the work that I enjoy doing.
Do you think so? I've been thinking a lot about just technology in general, and how basically it's this. So essentially, we all have this device that you can access all of the information that the world can offer, essentially, right? And how this device, we have all the information at our fingertips. And so I guess where I'm going with this is thinking about this disconnection with ourselves, because we can look up answers to our questions, right? And so I'm curious, from your experiences, like, what have you observed are the things that make people disconnected from themselves?
Oh my gosh. Um, I think society in general and the pressure that um, honestly a cis white patriarchy has pushed on us to disassociate, to not feel, to produce, to achieve, without really looking for any whys or understandings beneath that. How fast can you go? How quickly can you attain that? What is the material possession that you can gain that others will want? Our whole, structure and society is built on that immediate gratification versus slow and steady wins the race, right? Being in a race at all, right?
Yeah.
Everything has been basically built to completely remove us from a deeper sense of self. I'm speaking specifically about the American society or the Anglo society. I mean, we can talk about the British Empire, everything like disconnect. But I think the really great thing is over I think in cycles, like whether we're talking about like the 60s, 60s and 70s, the 90s, and now like we're in 2022, we have these cycles of like reawakening, reimagining. Discovery is okay. Self-care is okay, even though self-care is honestly a privilege and a luxury.
Yeah.
So I think that we're at a time where we can really take advantage of that and like expand it as much as possible. It's okay to wish to discover who you are beneath the surface because it leads to, again, understanding and healing. And then if you choose to procreate, you can pass those teachings on to, your children, and they can pass them on to their children and
Sure.
hopefully heal their ancestral line in some
Sure.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just for context too, can you talk about your, what led you to your awakening?
Yeah. Being incredibly disconnected from who I was. I had been worked in several different careers, mostly because I thought they would be considered enviable or powerful or would, make my parents proud. And I couldn't understand why I was still really fucking miserable. And I couldn't understand why I just seemed to never be happy. So I was pretty desperate and I decided to meditate. Despite like making fun of it and being really sick and tired of people telling me to
When
meditate.
when was this? How long ago was this?
This was almost 10 years ago now. And through that meditation, I started having memories from when I was a child because I dealt with a lot of spirits when I was growing up, but I blocked that out a lot because it was terrifying. And I also, you don't want to be different. You don't want to like, what'd you do last night? Well, I talked to a spirit of the man that built our house and I've also been sleeping in my parents' room for the last like 10 years because I'm fucking scared all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I shut that down, but these memories started coming through during meditation. And then what happens is as you meditate and as you form that type of practice, you become more open, you become more connected. I started noticing synchronicities, different people started talking to me and coming up to me. I started researching different things, again, only because now I know my spirit guides are leading me through to those things, and my higher self was leading me in that direction. But at the time, there's a flow that begins to happen. You feel in flow. That doesn't mean your whole life changes, but there's a feeling of, I don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm headed in the right direction.
And where would you say that you are now in terms of that connection with the self?
Oh, I'm at the point where I have to start all over again.
Hmm.
Because
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what you said, everything comes in cycles.
it comes in cycles, right? So
Yeah.
through this awakening and through this understanding and through this reintroduction to the connection I have with the dead, I have created this incredibly wonderful, business around it, which I love dearly. But the busier I get, the more disconnected I get. So right now I'm at the point where I know I'm going to be pulling back so that I can reconnect to the whole reason I'm doing this work to begin with, which is to know myself, to honor myself,
Yeah.
to listen to myself and tangibly activate what my needs are versus simply hearing them or feeling them and moving on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think about that a lot, this balance of attainment and drive
Mm-hmm.
and this balance of self-care and, certain survival needs, like if you have things that you need to pay for, and which,
Mhm.
most people do, right? And being conscious of how you're going to make money, especially if you don't have a specific, like a 9 to 5 job,
Yeah.
which presents its own sort of problems. Um, and I'm curious, like, when do you feel like the most connected with yourself?
Oh, wow. I feel the most connected to myself when I'm talking to the dead, which is
Mm,
kind of bizarre. Um,
how so?
because it's like talking to a bunch of friends. And there's always something funny that's being said. There's always something a little bit snarky. Um, it's like again, it's really therapeutic for me, and that's also when I know when I'm disconnected, when I'm spending, hours a day talking to other people's guides, and the time I spend with my own is, minimal. That's a
Mm,
disconnection. Because also when I'm talking to my guides, I'm also at the same time I'm talking to my higher self. I'm talking to my heart. Even if I didn't believe in, speaking to the dead, whatever that may be, spending time with the self, asking questions of the self, that is something that is necessary. That is necessary for all of us. And I'm sure I mean, I know we've met people that like when they're met with like spending time alone with themselves, they panic. They have to like talk to somebody else. They have to fill up the space because they're so uncomfortable with hearing what's been waiting to be said that they need to distract themselves. And then what that does is just perpetuate cycles and patterns and false narratives over and over and over again.
mhm.
And also when I mean, we spend a lot of time together, Yoshino.
Yeah.
You've seen the way that I work. You're like, how many hours have gone by? Like there's no balance, right?
Mm,
So, and that's me doing myself a disservice, which is why I'm like at this point right now where I'm like, okay, how can I start from scratch? How can I go back? How can I remember the reason I was so inspired by this work to begin with? Oh, that starts with me listening to myself, talking to my guides again, spending time away from quote unquote productivity. Because, again, if I'm spending time with myself, that is productive, right? We have
mm.
another false narrative. It's only productive if there's something that's being shared outwardly versus
Yeah.
what about what I'm sharing inwardly with myself or with other spirits.
Mm. What would you say is the connection? Well, okay, let's actually start with this. So, how do you think people can get connected with their guides if they are not connected, or if they don't feel connected with their guides currently?
I think the first thing is, again, to start a meditation practice where you're listening to yourself, right? You might meditate for 10 minutes and then, journal what came up for you. How are you feeling? How does your body feel? Is there energy is your back hurting? Like, did you all of a sudden just think about, an ice cream sundae? Allowing space for you to really like hear yourself is the first thing, right? And then you can build on that by just starting to talk to your guides. You can talk to them out loud. Like I talk to them out loud in the kitchen. You can talk to them out loud in the car. And again, you don't have to necessarily completely believe in this. But when you do that, you're activating and strengthening a connection that's already there. It could be with your higher self, right? You might say like, oh my gosh, I really hope I have a great day today. And all of a sudden you get an image of yourself, going for a run. And you're like, oh wow, I haven't been for a run in a long time. And when I run, I feel free. And when I feel free, I'm so much calmer. You're allowing space. And then that can build, and this is like step zero, right? Like that can help you
Yeah.
begin to build that connection with the other side because you're basically building a connection with your intuition, which we all have. We're all psychic.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay, so you said we're all a psychic. So, can you kind of divulge your theories of that to me, like the way
I
that
think
you see that?
we all have intuition. We are all psychic. We're all born like, you meet someone and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't know why. I just don't like this person. Or, you think about a specific person, all of a sudden your phone rings and it's that person. We're all connected to these different dimensions, these different planes, these different timelines, these different energies. It's just about how do I cultivate that, which is practice, right? You might get a gut feeling about, a job opportunity, or all of a sudden you're like, I don't know why, but I need to move to Hawaii. Doesn't make any sense, but I have to do it, right?
Hmm.
It's this pull. But instead of like trying to logic the pull away, you're allowing and surrendering to it. And then you
Hmm.
can really notice a lot of shifts.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's like so individual, and like the question that I have around this can't really be answered in a universal way. But I just think about why people lose that connection with themselves. But then there's so many different reasons, right? I mean, it could be
Well, they don't
from.
trust themselves.
Mhm.
I mean, I believe whether we're talking about psychic work or whether we're talking about anything really, most people don't trust themselves. They don't trust their feelings. They don't trust a lot of their thoughts. They don't trust their choices, right?
And
When we're talking about
mhm.
spiritual work or intuitive work,
Yeah.
that's all based on building trust. And then you build trust in yourself. And as I mentioned, once you begin to trust yourself, even if you end up being wrong about something, you don't need to seek outside of the self as much. You feel more, you know and understand that you have the answers already.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I was just thinking about this because, well, recently I had Natalie Goldberg on the podcast. You know who Natalie Goldberg is,
Mm-hmm.
but for the
Mm-hmm.
audience, the author of Writing Down the Bones,
Yeah.
and it's interesting to think, or it was interesting to talk to her because she's 74 years old, I think now, and she's from just a different generation than you and I are from, and we were talking about discursive thinking and how that relates to technology. And I think my personal opinion is that technology, it like recently I wrote a caption on one of my images. It's like when did the tool become the weapon,
Mm.
right? And so thinking about your phone and how it's supposed to help you in a lot of ways, but then at the same time, Pandora's out of the box. And when social media was first created, I would assume it was more so to be able to connect people, but now it seems like that connection is further distance people from each other, right? And so, and I think about just how inundating the technology is, which further wields a disconnection with yourself. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I think anything can be utilized as a weapon. I think humanity is very comfortable with creation, and as well as is just as comfortable with destruction as it is with creation, right? I mean, I wouldn't have the career I have if it wasn't for social media. I've made so many community members through social media. I wouldn't have the reach I have, without social media. And yes, it's absolutely, frustrating, and it can become this hamster wheel of a whole nother job. But I think whether we're talking about technology, whatever we're talking about, at the end of the day, it comes to choice, individual choice. We have control. We can decide to get one of those phones that doesn't have any apps on it. We can decide to, not engage with, not have computers. It's all up to us as individuals. We have autonomy for the most part, even though that autonomy is definitely threatened right now. But I think it can look at like, it can feel like a crutch, or not taking responsibility for or accountability for, and I'm not saying that this is what you're saying, but like to put, all of our disconnection on the doorstep of technology. Because again, like, we make our own choices every day. I make a choice, unfortunately, I'm one of those people. I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like scrolling. I know it's unhealthy. I know it's gross. I know, like, what am I really getting from this? Nothing. But I still make that choice more often than I don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Something that has really helped me with that is having two separate devices, one that has social media on it and the other one that doesn't. And then the one that does have it on, there is what's it called? I mean, it's essentially like this idea of self-control. And if you think like oh, I don't have ice cream in the fridge, I never have ice cream in the fridge, so I'm never tempted to even have that
Yeah.
choice, right? So it's essentially
Yeah.
eliminating the choice, or putting it in a place where you have a place for it, right? So it's easier for the brain to make a decisive decision on when to do it, or when to interact with it, or when not to, right?
I agree. I mean, also, I mean, again, like I put my phone goes on do not disturb from like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. every day because I used to be that person that was like had it, I could feel it vibrating. It used to be under my pillow, which is so unhealthy. But recently, what I know I'm going to be doing is like, because I also have my alarms on my phone, I have like this phone home that I have where I'm going to put it in there. I can't see it. And then have like an old school alarm clock that just will go off. Again, these are choices, right? We can discuss. This is, again, with anything, like these are things that we can think about. But what I often hear from source, from spirits, are like, you're receiving medicine, you're receiving information. How are you activating it?
Mm.
Like it's a disservice to, and I'm sure you felt this too. Like you're like, oh, it would be great if I did X, Y, and Z. It'd be great if I started this project. It'd be great. But then it just sits there. And sometimes that's timing. But a lot of times it's like, why am I choosing to not honor this call within me? Again, whether it relates to technology or anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Like, what are some of the most rewarding things of being of service to people? Let's just go with that. Yeah. What's the most rewarding things?
I mean, connection and seeing the transformation. I mean, most of the people I work with, I've been working with for years, and being able to see the shifts is, oh, sorry, hold on.
That's okay. The puppy speaks.
Always talking.
Yeah.
But being able to see those shifts and transformations is, I feel, a blessing. Like just before this call, I had a client who, wanted to share this song she wrote about the connection of mother and child because she's in the process of, trying to become pregnant. And I was just blown away by the magic and the emotion that she wanted to share with me. And I just was thinking, I was like, gosh, I'm so lucky. Like I get to talk to all these different types of people who do so many different types of things and live around the world. And I get to hear where they've been and where they are and what they want to change. And then I get to listen to all of these different spirits and all of this unconditional love and all of this unconditional support. And sometimes I can, forget about that, or get bogged down by oh, when am I going to send that newsletter? Or, oh my gosh, I've got to do my taxes, all of these earthly things.
Logistical
Yeah.
thoughts, yeah.
And I'm just like, this is not something I ever thought I would ever do. And I'm just really honored to be able to do this work.
Yeah. I can imagine that's incredibly rewarding, is to be of service to people at such a capacity that you are, I mean, although, I know you're incredibly busy. I think it's about, I guess if I were you, I'd be thinking when is it too much to where it just takes over my entire life? Or when is it that perfect balance of when I feel the goodness of just being able to be of service to people and help people? And
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean?
I mean, I think when last time you and I hung out, I was pretty much in free fall burnout. I was like, I am not going to make it. This is just too much because
Yeah.
I think I'm I almost want to look this up because I think that
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, I'm trying to do the math. I think I've seen close to 3,000 people in the last few years. Because I don't
Individually?
Mhm. Individually. And obviously some of those numbers are people that repeat, but yeah, in terms of single, I was looking at it the other day, which is
Wait, in the
insane.
past how many years?
4 years. four
3,000 people.
or more than that. I mean, it's just actually I can let me look right now, like because this is client internet's
Well,
take.
that's essentially, I mean, if I'm doing the math correctly, including weekends, that's essentially 3 people a day every day.
Sometimes more. No, because sometimes I would see like 5 people in a day, so I could have a day off, right?
Hmm.
So what is it like 300? I mean, people are going to be like, this is boring. 365 4 is 1,460 days divided by 3,034. No, I mean, yeah, I can do that. I mean, that's like, I mean, if it's every day, but no, like I've seen like 3,034 people in past 4 years.
That is
So no, like
insane.
I've had, but so it's, yeah, no, it's insane. So when I saw you, I was like, I'm dying, you know? And then I created this kind of like this new schedule where I was like, okay, I am not seeing people anymore for one-off sessions. I'm only seeing people that want to work continuously. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna have Mondays and Fridays and Sat. I'm only gonna work 3 days a week. And I had this feeling like the first, honestly, 2 months that happened, which is recent, where like by 3 o'clock, I mean, there's always more work to do, but by three
Yeah.
o'clock I'm done. And my partner Justin would like walk into the living room and he would just see me like kind of staring. He's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know what to do." Like, like which is part of the disconnection, right? I was like, I've been so invested in all of these people, which is great. I love it. That now this is the realization that I've completely disconnected from myself. I don't even know what to do when there's free time. I'm just like wandering around,
Mm.
right? And then there
Yeah.
comes to like, okay, so how do I again reconnect to self? What is it that I've been aching to do? Who is it that I'm aching to be? And how can I integrate that into my day so that I really begin to create this flow and way of being and way of working that is fulfilling again and inspiring?
Hmm. Who is it that you're aching to be?
I am aching to be someone who continues to see clients, but also continues to create on multiple levels. Like
Hmm.
whether it's oracle decks or books or, retreat spaces, traveling to continuing my own psychic education. I want to keep learning for the rest of my life. I want to expand the gifts that I have. I want to be living versus, what is the phrase, like working to live instead of, living to work. And
Mm-hmm.
even when we are, connected to our calling, that can still happen.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think it's really important to understand, the other day I was thinking about just this phrase, be careful what you wish for because it could happen.
Yes. And so you need to be ready, right? Guides are always talking about like, what's the strategy? What's the plan? What's the foundation so that when these opportunities come knocking or these doors want to be open, yes, there might be a little bit of trepidation or fear, but overall you feel ready to take that leap
Hmm.
and then there are no regrets. That's also
Yeah.
something like, we all have regrets, but I'm like, I want to stop having regrets. I want to leap.
Mm. Do you ever sit down and write down? I mean, I'm sure you have at some point in your life, but your exact values, like specific things that you value.
Oh yeah, I definitely have. Or I more recently I think about like what archetype do I want to embody, right? Do I
Mm.
want to embody, the emperor? Do I want to embody the mother? Do I want to embody the fool? Right? Because I think we can get trapped in feeling as though we can only be one archetype. Like, right? Like as a practitioner, it's usually the mother, the mother, the mother, right? But then if that's the only archetype you embody, then you become the wounded mother, right? You become resentful of those that need you. But we can embody different archetypes every day or every season. And I think that creates more freedom and transition. I mean, there are there are the hero's journey archetypes. They're Freudian archetypes. I think they're like over 300 archetypes. And sometimes I'll just pull up the list and I'm like, okay, who do I want to be today? What does that give me access to? What does that allow me to release?
Mm. And who did you want to be today?
Oh my gosh, of course. I was like, he's going to ask me. And I'm like, oh my God. I, you know, um, well, today I feel like I was embodying, the healer, and I embody that when I know I'm connecting with clients. Now, again, like when I say that, I don't believe myself to be a healer, but I believe myself to have access to helping those, I speak to heal themselves.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, your facial expression. You're
Right, right.
yeah. Hmm.
Well, that just goes back to because again, like historically, people are like, "Oh, I'm going to go see a medium." Like, tell me my future. Where's the crystal ball? Like, tell me what's going to happen. When am I going to meet my soulmate? When am I? I'm like, that's not. Um, there's something that one of my guides said to me a few years ago when I kept getting clients that I didn't want to work with that were wanted me to be, their crystal ball. And I resented that because I'm like, that's not the work that I do. And he told me that we're not here to predict their future. We're here to help you to create your own. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Like, I'm not a fortune teller, I'm here to hopefully empower you to create your own future because you're the only one that can do that.
Mm.
And the spirits are just there to help activate and share.
Mm.
And they have so many sayings like that, so many pieces of wisdom that kind of send me spinning. And which is one of the many, many reasons why I love talking to them so much because I learn so much and I learn so much from other people's guides. I'm constantly in sessions. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. They just said da 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 da. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to write. I'll say, can we pause for a second? I just got to write that down because I'm gonna have to think about that myself later. And they're like, yeah. Like, I had a spirit that said, what did they say during a session? They said, your higher self is the energetic voice of your success, right? So I was thinking about
say that again. Say that again.
Your higher self is the energetic voice of your success. So for example, like your higher self is the truest form of who you are, right? So your higher self is the voice that's like, I don't think you actually have this issue, Yoshino, but like the higher self is the voice, like that I can feel my body, the sun is coming up. My higher self will say, hey, why don't you like get up right now and like meditate, go for a walk, watch the sunrise. And then my earthly self is like, no, fuck that. Like I need to get some sleep, right? But that higher self voice, if I got up and I experienced the sunrise, how many downloads would I get? How great would I feel? The birds singing, seeing the miracle of the sun rising, that would change the trajectory of my entire day.
You know what? But you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. So basically I'm going to relate this to your spiritual awakening in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. And so essentially what you're saying is, for someone that is new to talking to their spirit guides, it's really about sitting down, having that meditation, and speaking to the spirit guides, right? So it's the action, right? Action, feelings,
actions precipitate change.
Yeah, exactly. Actions precipitate change. Exactly. And so I think with, waking up early or, it's really just about the habits, right? Because there's certainly days, actually, most days I don't really want to go and work out, but I do anyways because I know that when I'm there, that something's going to kick in psychologically to be like, no, you're here. We're going to push ourselves. Maybe you didn't get that much sleep last night, but you're going to do the best that you can today, And so I think externally, when you see people that are like hyper disciplined with working out or something, or perhaps it's, them trying to craft this narrative around them of like, I don't know, for men, it's like this hyper masculine sort of energy of, like being a champion and being a warrior or whatever. But I think like the truth of it, whether those people are conscious of it or not, is like it's just a decision, really. And
Right,
the
it's choice. But
yeah,
the higher self isn't it's the higher self isn't always
hmm,
asking you to do something difficult. Right. Well, let me change that. The
sure,
higher self isn't always asking you to do something that might be physically difficult to do. That doesn't mean that what they're asking you to do isn't internally difficult, right? So sure, it could, one example is, hey, Asia, you should fucking wake up. Like your body's already awake. You should greet the sun. It could be, hey, Asia, you are burnt out. You cannot keep working this level. You have to make room for rest, right? If we are constantly, and this is also about discipline, it's about discipline connected to choice, right? So if we are able to consistently listen to our higher self, we will be successful in whatever it is we're trying to activate, change, achieve, release, because we're engaged in listening to the truest form of who we are. And that's not always possible. You're right. You're creating routine. You're creating patterns. Those patterns might work for 6 months, 5 years, and then you might fall out of them. But that's also why it's difficult. I feel like human beings, as we are incredibly complicated and flawed. And oftentimes what serves us best, we decide to turn away from for whatever reasons. It could be trauma. It could be, feeling as though we're unworthy of that time, of that energy. But it's still within that, the higher self is always going to lead us in the right direction if we so choose to, pick up what they're, laying down.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's good to be aware of the paradox that exists within that as well, right? This idea that even if you do choose your higher self, there are going to be times and moments of suffering within one's life that will
Oh yeah.
challenge you, right? But that doesn't mean that you're straying off the path of attaining your highest self or leaning into your highest self, but it's more so it's a path of challenge. So, and actually perhaps the challenge can help you and lead you further down that path as well, whatever that challenge may be.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be suffering in all of it, right? There's going to be there's suffering in your awakening. There's suffering when you're, starting a new workout routine. There's suffering when you are, going through a master's program. There's suffering in it because you're changing who you are for something that, you're going to be receiving down the line,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that suffering can shift and change until it becomes joy, until it becomes, celebration. But any journey is going to have the full, plethora of emotions running through it. And a lot of us, feel as though, oh, if I don't do that, then I don't have to go through that. But what that then leads to is stagnancy. It leads to feeling lost. It leads to feel as though you're walking in circles because you are.
Mm. When that word suffering comes up, what is something that your spirit guides tell you about suffering and how to overcome it?
It's suffering is part of life. Suffering is part of learning. We're activating lessons, right? And our guides just hope that we don't need to continue to repeat those lessons over and over again. When I talk about failure, guides don't talk to me about failure. For them, there is no failure. Instead, it's like, what are you learning? What are you learning so you're not the bird that keeps hitting themselves against the window pane, right?
Mm. That's a good metaphor. Yeah, that's true.
And of course there is suffering, but again, when I'm talking to spirits, they recognize suffering, they recognize pain, but they are constantly saying, so what have you learned so that you don't need to walk this road again? And some of us have been walking that same road for lifetimes. I believe in past lives, right? So something that I will sometimes do is, I do a lot of past life regression, but I also do a lot of future life progression. I'll, get into a meditative and then trance state where I can visit a part of myself in the future. That could be in this life or in a future life. And I can choose, I want to connect to myself 10 years from now in a moment where I feel completely at peace and at ease. And then I can take that memory, I can take that feeling and bring it into my day to day to help me get closer to that specific future, because there are multiple futures that are happening and we switch into different lanes, literally with every choice or what did one of my guides say? Every inaction is still an action, right? So I can make a choice and I can also choose not to make a choice, and that still has ramifications. positively and negatively.
True. Yeah. Yeah. What led you to this conclusion of past life and future life, being able to channel into those
I
thoughts?
mean, I think there's a very big difference between dreams and visions, right? And I would have visions of myself in completely different timelines, completely different people. I've had visions where I've been like buried alive and I felt like I was choking and I had to wake myself out of it. So truly just through my own experiences, right? Again, like not I'm a natural skeptic. I don't believe anything until it's happened to me, right? Excuse me, just because I believe, that I can talk to the dead and I believe in spirits doesn't mean I believe everything, right? But like, as I mentioned, so through my personal experiences, I believe that to be true. And therefore, I believe in our capabilities and our ability to connect to future versions of ourselves and learn from them and allow ourselves a little bit more control in terms of like picking the timeline we want to be in. Like I often think about, oh, cool, I'm in the timeline where Hitler was defeated. Damn, couldn't I also be in the timeline where Trump didn't become elected president? Like I got one, but not the other, right? Like why did my soul choose this timeline? Even like right now, with everything going on, I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Like, can you remind me of that conversation before I incarnated where I was like, yeah, this timeline? Because I have some thoughts.
Mhm. What is so I'm curious about your experiences of speaking with the dead. Are there any specific lessons that you've learned that stand out to you at this moment?
I've learned so. I mean, I learned to. I think I asked them. It was a few years ago. I was like, why me? Like, why are you all talking to me? And my main guide, not my main guide, one of my guides said, because you listened, you know, honestly, and that means because I trusted. I heard one of them say, you should combine, life coaching with, mediumship. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a bad idea. I feel like I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to be called a fucking Looney Tune. They
Yeah.
said, do it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Changed everything. One of my guides said, you should start a spiritual collective. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but okay, because they have like, they have led me to such an amazing place within my life that I trust them. And through trusting them, I trust myself. I mean, in the beginning, I did ask them about everything, right? Like, should I make a left turn here or a right? Because again, like you're in this kind of obsessive state of like, I'm fucking getting answers here. I'm going to use them. But they started talking to me like, you already have these answers. You don't need to ask us about every little thing. I started to trust myself more, have more confidence. Like, should I open this new program? Should I, start a retreat for witches? Should I do this? Should I do that? And instead of asking them, I trusted my higher self. I trusted my heart. It was a yes or a no. And that didn't mean everything was, super, super what we would qualify as successful. But when it wasn't, I actually wasn't as bothered as I would have been before, my connection. I would have been like, oh, I'm a loser. I'm a fucking failure. Instead, I was like, oh, okay, that didn't work. That didn't hit. What did I learn from that?
Mm.
What did I experience
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can help me next
Mm.
time?
Mm. So you keep on saying you trusted yourself. I keep on hearing that. And
Mm-hmm.
so is there a difference? Do you see a difference between your spirit guides and yourself, or is it kind
Oh
of
yeah.
what is the difference exactly? Like, how would you
Well,
describe it to
I
people?
mean, I'm me, and I have my own thoughts, my own history, my own life and lives, and my spirit guides are most of them are energies that have lived before on this plane. Right? They're very different.
Mhm.
They can disagree with each other. Sometimes they do disagree with each other. I'm usually trying to talk to the person that is kind of like, for lack of a better word, the leader in this period, and usually it's my main guide, Monty. Sometimes I disagree with him though, and I don't listen. That usually bites me in the ass, but that's okay. Like I needed to learn that lesson. They are completely different than me. They have completely different energy than me. They have, I could love a movie. I think earlier on when I had time, like I would watch a movie and I'd be like, what do you think? I'm like, this fucking movie is amazing. And I'd hear one of my guys go, no, I did not like it. I did not like the acting. Like, and Justin, my partner, will like hear me laughing and he's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, I'm talking to a lot of people, but it's also the realization with, when you start talking to the dead that you're never alone. There's always like a group around you. I don't know if you've seen that British show. They just did a remake, an American remake, which is not good, but Ghosts.
I haven't.
It's hilarious. And it's really pretty accurate. And it's about this couple that moves into this massive estate that she inherited. And she has a near-death experience. And all of a sudden she can hear all the ghosts that have been living there since, like, I think there's like, since the land became land or whatever. And she's constantly like hearing different voices, she's different conversations, and that's what it's like. But you can choose to turn the volume up or turn it down. And I have much more boundaries in place than I used to, where they know, like, we're not going to bother Asia right now. Here, like, we know when we can come in and she'll actually be paying attention.
Can you name each one of your spirit guides and tell me a little bit of a background with them? Like, are they ancestral? Are they, and also, the different types of lineages that people may have with their spirit guides?
I think, again, a lot of mediums and mystics have different opinions about this. Like, I've definitely heard, like, Sylvia Brown didn't believe that any spirit guide could be connected to you through family. I don't know why she thought that. I don't believe that. Like, my main guide, Monty, was my husband in a past life, and he is connected to my ancestry. I have another guide named Charles, who we were brother and sister, not ancestrally connected. We were brother and sister during the wow, I'm blanking on this, but basically when America was being created through pilgrims, like the Pilgrim period, right? And my experiences with these guides in our lifetimes together, that bond and that connection transcended time. And before I was incarnated in this lifetime, we came to an agreement of, yes, let's work together. Let's continue to do this work. And a lot of our guides aren't just guiding us, they're guiding lots of people. My main guide, Monty, guides several people. He actually also guides a really good friend of mine, which was really cool to realize several years ago, which is unusual in my.
Wait, how did you find that out? I mean, it was just through a conversation, or did you have a conversation through Monty, and then Monty, said that they're a guide to this person?
Yeah, I had led a workshop, and I was at the house at Spirit House by myself. And again, I was talking to Monty, and I was a little nervous, and I asked him if he was guiding, other people besides me, and he said yes. And I was like a little perturbed by that. I was like, what the fuck is that? Why, I'm not enough? Like, you need other people? I'm like, come on, aren't I? I'm a handful here. And then I said, even though I knew the answer before I wrote it down, and this is through automatic writing, which is, allowing automatic writing you can do in a couple different ways. You can just do flow of consciousness, where you just write, or you can allow a spirit to move your hand. And I allow the spirit to move my hand. So I said, are you guiding anyone I know? And I could feel this energy of excitement. He's like, yes. And it's really rare, to guide two people that actually know each other. And I was like really bummed out about that. I was like, who are you guiding that I know? And he said, you just met her. And there was this woman who had come to this workshop who I kind of, felt a connection with, but that happens all the time. And he said, and her name is Taylor, and who
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, what? Or what does this mean? And he's like, it doesn't have to mean anything. I'm like, what does this mean? Like, we're going to become best friends or something? He's like, you don't have to, but that's a possibility. which is hilarious because she's actually living here now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what's also interesting is that I call him Monty, short for his last name, which is Montgomery, right? And shortly after this, I had Taylor had asked me to channel, something for like because I used to write these spirit letters, which are letters from people's spirit guides. And I actually can't. Anyway, the point is that I channeled this message for her, and I knew, like, okay, Monty's her guide, but he actually signed it. So for me, he's Montgomery, and he signed it for her, Montague. And again, I hadn't known Taylor very long. So when I give her the letter, she's like blown away. She's like, my last name is Montague. And I was like, I didn't know that. So the names are similar. They both start with an M. Montgomery is connected to my ancestral line way down the line. And Montague is actually her name. So there are all these little connections. It's just cool to see the way these things line up.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. Do you think that, have you seen that connection with anyone else?
No.
That you've met?
No. It's really, when I remember talking to Monty about it, he's like, it's very rare to meet someone where you have the same guide, right? A guide that is the same. And that's why was really excited about it. And it's interesting now, and this is for psychics in general, but now that Taylor and I are like spending even more time together, we're living with each other, we are like, I'll say something and she'll like, and she's like already looking at it on her computer. Or, actually we were just talking about last night, I woke up in the middle of the night and there was a spirit in my room that was not friendly. And then I look at my phone because my phone's on Do Not Disturb. And I look at my phone and exactly that time Taylor's like, there is a spirit here that I need to clear. It's really toxic. And I was like, oh my God, like I woke up at the same time. There's just, and also, so we're feeding off of each other psychically. And then Monty is also talking to us about similar things at the same time, which we laugh about. We're like, oh my gosh, he's got so much less work now. Like he's just like, he can just bop. I mean, obviously, he transcends time, but I feel like he must be getting a kick out of the fact that we're under the same roof.
Yeah. Wow. That's really fascinating.
Also, I'm aware that this probably sounds bananas to your listeners. They're like, what is this woman talking about?
I mean, well, I guess that depends if you believe in these sort of things or not. But I think that's the interesting thing, is to be able to explore the idea of coming in contact with things that may be completely out of your purview, or something that is challenging to you, and really understanding the idea of what is truth, right? Because you can't find truth unless you examine things that you could think that are untrue, right? So, and I mean, at the end of the day, I guess, like, who really decides that? Who really decides what's true or what's not, right? Is that,
we do for ourselves, right? Like, I think that's right? It's the individual. Like, what is your individual truth?
Yeah. So what is your individual truth?
I believe that I talk to dead people. And I believe that it could, if we all were open to it, it could really change our lives for the better. Yeah. That is my personal truth. And I understand people that don't agree with it. I understand people who think I'm crazy. I understand if people think I'm trying to scam other people. I understand it all. I can see all sides. This is just my truth, and I stand by it. It's my faith, right? We all have to have faith in something. Hopefully it's something positive.
I like that. Yeah. So I guess a final question that I have for you is, do you have any advice for artists and creatives?
Actually, I'm listening to one of my guides. When it comes to anything creative, I think it's really about releasing yourself from expectation on the final project, of the final turnout, how it's going to turn out, or how it's going to be received. If you can really be present in the moment and create, then it's going to be something that not just satisfies you, but continues to inspire you to move further into realms that could feel uncomfortable, but ultimately offer perspective, on the self and on the lived experience. If we can release ourselves from thinking, what will this gain? Then we can truly begin to inhabit what it is to be an artist, and also what it is to truly live and be alive.
Wow. Some powerful stuff.
Hopefully that resonates with somebody.
I think it will. I think it will. Yeah.
And that's really fucking hard to do. To like release
what, to resonate with someone, or what do you mean?
No, to like release expectation. You know, to say like, I mean, some people obviously can do it, and I think it's a practice. But you know, when he's saying that, it's like, again, it's that trap of society. Like, I'm creating something. I want to create something. What am I creating this for? Am I creating this for the self, or am I creating this for others? Right? If I create this for others, then I inevitably am going to think about how they're going to perceive it, how they're going to live with it, what they're going to gain from it, instead of really just falling back and surrendering into the creative process, which is 100% channeling and time traveling. When you're really present, you lose time, which is why creatives talk about muses, right? You know, or being in the zone. You are time traveling, you are channeling, you are wholly present. And those can be fleeting moments.
That's some powerful stuff.
Oh, thank you. It's not really me, but I'll
No, that's really great. Yeah. I think it's like, it's easy to lose focus in on this specific moment, you know, like even in the beginning of this interview, I felt that kind of nervousness, that sort of imposter syndrome come up, and I was talking to myself in my brain, my head. I was like, this is just Asia, you know, Asia. you guys are cool. You guys are cool.
Yes, come on. I'm fucking easy.
I know,
but I get that imposter syndrome comes up with, I think, all of us. And again, I really think it's connected to expectation. Expectation can cripple us. It can create, it's like quicksand. And, you know, again, it's not easy, but we do ourselves a disservice. Like, we need to gain some perspective, you know? Yeah. You do this work because you love to do it. You love to talk to people. You love to share experiences. You love to, you know, learn. You love to connect. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And you hope that other people will resonate with the people that you bring here and the conversations that you have. And they do. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard to let go of those expectations, especially if you want rewards around them, you know, in terms of like monetary rewards, or
of course.
Right.
But those will come, right? The more yourself you are, the more understanding you have for yourself, the more that you're doing things based on purely what you love to do, those other things will happen, right? Especially like Artist Decoded, you're connecting to artists. Artists have this vulnerability, which I feel like allows them to access so much. But then you can be trapped within that vulnerability, which can turn to fear, which can turn to doubt, which can turn to regret, and create this loop, right?
Yeah.
But I think the more comfortable we get with, like, as an artist, I am being vulnerable, I am sharing who I am, versus I am an artist, I am sharing for recognition or acclaim or money, then I think artists can really free themselves to really submerge in the process, and they'll probably be shocked by what they create. Mm-hmm. Again, easier said than done. We all need to pay the bills, but we can honestly pay the bills in a lot of other ways that doesn't compromise our art or what we create.
True. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good to make a distinction between, just because someone's successful in something doesn't mean that you really understand what they feel inside either, right?
Oh my God, of course.
Externally, they may seem to be, and they may be monetarily well off, but it doesn't mean that you understand the full embodiment of their soul being, you know?
Oh my God,
or
I'm
the
sure you know.
manipulation that they had to do in order to get there, right? So you can't really,
100%.
yeah. So but I think that goes back to having very thin values in our society in terms of what we deem to be successful, right?
Yes, and the whole comparison loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, this person has 5 million followers and they sold out their show and like they're smiling in every photo. That is reality. When no, that's just like, that's two dimension. That's not reality. That's, a layer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They could be suicidal that night and they could be looking at their show like, I can't believe people bought every piece of artwork. It's shit. And yeah, I have a lot of money, but I'm alone, and or it could be the opposite. We don't know, but like, and going back to what you're saying about technology, like that's the lie, right? Like being able to look at things and be able to say, okay, this isn't truth. This is an aspect of a person or a company or an artist or, whatever. Like this aspect could have a piece of truth in it, but it is not the whole story. Can I accept that as truth and not utilize it to bring myself down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Asia, you're awesome.
Oh, you're awesome. I'm so glad you invited me.
Of course. Anytime. Seriously. I wish I did this over there, but c'est la vie, I suppose.
Next time, that'll be round 3.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll be like deep in my cycle of, renewal and remembering who I am
Mm. Well, I mean, I think we all need to remind ourselves who we are, you know?
without question
Yeah. Yeah.
or take the time to discover it.
Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? I do have one more question. All right.
Yeah.
So, do you have any books or any films or anything uh, of that nature to reference for people, to as advice for? Mhm.
I don't know if this is going to be advice. I think so. First of all, I already gave you a great show, Ghosts. It's a comedy,
Okay.
really
Yeah.
cool. I really do think about, I like having fun and I also like scaring the shit out of myself. So that movie Hereditary with Tony Collette, it gets wild at the end, but very, in my opinion, pretty accurate with about spirit communication, which I always think is cool to
That's
see.
scary. It's a little scary.
Well, I mean, it's very scary, but just there's some kernels of truth there, which I really
I
enjoyed.
see. Okay.
Um, I think when it comes to uh, I think everyone should have an oracle deck or a tarot deck to work with. Again,
Mm.
whether you believe in spirits or not, it's just activating your subconscious. Your subconscious pushes a lot of information to your conscious mind, which I think is really important. And again, you'll find the right deck that's for you. And if I'm trying to think of a book, um, The Body Keeps the Score is a great book. It's a
Mm.
classic.
Yeah.
It's like brain, mind, and body, like how to heal your brain, mind, and body from trauma. And also the classic, wow, why am I blanking on this? Oh my gosh, this is going to
It's
kill me.
always the classics. It's
It's
always a
the
classic.
classics, but like I just reread this. Um,
Take your time.
this is going to kill me.
No, it's okay. Take your time. Not a problem. I've always wanted to read The Body Keeps a Score, and I have it.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, Women Who Run with the Wolves. Jesus, like we were talking about archetypes, right? And that is a classic book. Like Clarissa talks about the archetypes that are super important. During the pandemic, I actually each day I would read it aloud on like Instagram Live, like a chapter. You'll end
Mm.
up like, it's Women Who Run with the Wolves, but everyone should read that book, right? No matter how like you identify.
Mm.
So those are my picks.
That sounds great. I'll check those out. I've
Yeah.
definitely wanted to read The Body Keeps a Score, and I've heard of that book before.
Women Who Run with the Wolves. Yeah.
Yeah, Women Who Run with the Wolves. Well, thanks for doing this. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely was. Cool. Well, I guess I'll see you later.
I guess I'll see you later.
Yeah. All right. Bye. Music for the podcast is by Rarebit, aka Justin Daashuur Hopkins. YouTube and creative support is by Tyler Scully. Social media assistance is by Noah Wainwright. Thanks so much for tuning in, and see you next time.